Dave Mann joins us from Shining Lights Trust. Dave, kia ora, thanks so much for your time today.
Hey, kia ora, Andrew.
What is the problem with Easter? I mean, I'm a bit of a fan. Just saying, I'm going to put myself out there. I think Easter is a fantastic thing to celebrate. It honestly changed my life. For some people, though, not such good news. They've got a whole bunch of problems with Easter. What's their beef with it, Dave?
Wow. Well, I loved your introduction. I think the great communication, Andrew. Yeah, I mean, we're all a bunch of pagans, really. I think that's the issue. And you got a pagan festival to the goddess Eastereth, and we've all embraced it as Christians. So we've been paganized. We've got the wrong date. The devil is most surely behind that, and we've all fallen for the trap.
Oh,
And so we're on the wrong date. We've got the wrong festival, and it's all just wrong. And in our social media, it's been interesting across the years that this really is an issue for quite a number of people.
yeah.
But I would say that by telling the stories and explaining it, it's an issue for less and less, which is good.
It is, and I mean, hey, I could expect pushback from people who have no care or understanding or inclination about faith, but some of this pushback is coming from people within the church, which is an unusual argument to be having on the cusp of Easter, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely it is. I mean, just to jump into it, for example, the date Jesus died was, of course, on the Passover festival. The
Yep,
dates bounced around. The Jewish and Greek calendars were different from each other.
yep.
And so when the public didn't use the Jewish calendar, what are they supposed to do? So they go, we need to know when Jesus died and rose. So they pick 25th March, and others picked 6th of April in a different church tradition. And so that way it was at the same time every single year. And so it is true that today Easter often doesn't fall on the Passover festival. It's a different dating system.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, the Bible never even said we had to celebrate the birth or death and resurrection of Jesus with a festival.
Okay.
So in actual fact, the whole complaint doesn't sit there. The Bible furthermore says, Romans 14, it talks about the fact that one person considers one day holy, another every day alike.
Yeah.
We're actually allowed to create our own religious festivals if we want to.
Yeah.
God's a God who judges the heart. So we could choose to celebrate every year the death and resurrection of Jesus on the 1st of July. It really wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Communion is the real celebration God gave us as a tradition, and we're allowed to celebrate. So I just suggest the issue isn't actually much of an issue.
And honestly, every day should be Easter. Every day should be a day where we celebrate the death and resurrection of Jesus. Every day I am changed and transformed by the work of the Holy Spirit. It would get exhausting if every day was a celebration, just saying. Some of the trappings that have come in, and perhaps it's less of a religious festival that it used to be, the chocolate bunnies, the chocolate eggs, the bunnies, the hot cross buns, all of these sort of the trappings and, dare I say it, tinsel of Easter. Is that part of the problem as well, Dave?
Yeah, well, people would say that it is. The goddess Eastereth was a fertility god, and so the symbolism of eggs and bunnies is quite easy to understand. As they embraced the Christian faith, though, they no longer had their pagan practices.
Yeah.
But sometimes you've got something that's just fun. And so you think of Guy Fawkes, it has no real spiritual meaning, but
No.
people might light a bonfire and even burn an effigy of a man made out of straw or something
It's
on
pretty
top of it.
brutal.
Horror,
Yeah.
horror.
Yeah.
You know, but it doesn't really mean anything. And so some of their cultural traditions continued, even though they'd embraced the Christian faith. And of course, the reason bunnies and eggs continue today is because of money. It's about marketing.
Yeah.
What a shop's going to sell to make money out of this weekend? And Easter every day. Some people like chocolate every day. Not necessarily a bad thing, they would say. But
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
again, not something that I think we need to be hot under the collar about.
Yeah,
Um, it's all
exactly.
good for celebration.
And I suppose this gives us an opportunity that if it wasn't for the Easter Bunny, we wouldn't have the opportunity to start a conversation about what we believe Easter is all about. If it wasn't for supermarket shelves chock-a-block, literally, with tinfoil wrapped eggs, whilst we're sharing a chocolate egg with our neighbour, I mean, this is a wonderful opportunity to say, hey, happy Easter, and then go on to say why we think Easter is important, to have a countercultural narrative, perhaps.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, Paul in 1 Corinthians 9:22, he says, I become all things to all people that by all possible means I might save some. So if we just go along and enjoy the chocolate, I know my children do,
Yeah,
dead right, we can take Easter eggs to a neighbour, and a person engaging, we can say, do you know what Easter's actually about? And we can share a story.
yeah,
And just on that topic as well, Easter actually isn't it's a cultural festival, not a religious festival, to
okay,
note it.
yeah,
Right? It's got a Christian tradition. They would have celebrated Jesus' death and resurrection from the first anniversary. That's when it started.
yeah,
But in our culture, it's been made a cultural festival with set dates for a wider reason, and that is that our culture wanted to honour Christianity. We live in one of the most free, prosperous, equality-based charitable societies on the planet and in human history because we have a Christian past.
yeah.
And so how do we honour this with a festival or with a public holiday so that as a culture we don't forget the stories of our own heritage and history? That's really the cultural purpose of Easter and Christmas. And so that opens up really a wide variety of stories that we could be learning and telling, not only about Jesus' birth, death, resurrection in these seasons, but actually about the amazing country and culture we live in, our freedoms, prosperity, equality, charity, and how these things came about. In some sense, that storytelling is the purpose of Easter and Christmas. And again, as we engage those conversations with neighbours and tell the stories, I do think that helps every one of them take a step toward Jesus
Yeah.
because they realise the faith actually has brought incredibly good, and we have a lot to be grateful for as a nation to the Christian faith.
Now, of course, not wanting to shy away from the story of the cross and resurrection, because this is at the heart
Indeed.
of who we are as Christians. If it wasn't for that, what would be the point? The scripture says. However, it may be less threatening to have a conversation about the impact of Christianity, the positive changes that Christian values and ethics and a transformed life has brought to our culture and society over many years. That may be a better place to start than some of the horrors of Good Friday or some of the, what some would see incredulity of somebody rising from the dead. It perhaps may be a better way to start the conversation than hammering in with the crucifixion, as it were.
Yeah, well, if we go back to the verse I just noted, Paul says, I become all things to all people that by all possible means I save some. I think the question for us as Christians is how do I help a person take a step toward Jesus?
Yeah,
Certainly in our churches, our church leaders, got to be preaching the gospel. We've got to be talking about what the death and resurrection of Jesus is actually about. But then for people listening, they might be thinking, well, is Christianity actually good? Is it more good? Is it true?
yeah,
So I would say the primary content of gospel preaching in some ways is actually about why we think the faith is true, giving both the rational and the experiential evidences. But yeah, you're dead right. You're talking with a neighbor or a friend or someone, and they're just not ready for that part of the conversation.
yeah.
Knowing the other stories of history to actually be able to tell is highly significant. Um, yeah, I have seen people literally change their view toward Christianity in New Zealand from hearing the Christian dynamic of the bicultural history as an example,
Yeah.
which is just one part of our cultural heritage. So, yeah, conversations to engage, stories to tell.
And important to know the Easter story, but hey, if people are saying, well, I don't know some of these stories, these other stories about the impact of Christianity on our culture, well, no excuses there. You don't get a pass from me, honestly, because all of that good information is available at the website that you and your team have put together. Lots of fantastic resources and some practical tools and programs to help encourage and equip people to engage with these conversations, to have these stories ready to drop into a chat with a friend, family member, or neighbor. All of that good stuff is available for people to engage with online, a lot of it free of charge. Dave, as we head into Easter, what's the best way to connect with that?
Yeah, I mean, if we want to be effective witnesses, we have to be willing to learn and we have to be willing to tool up.
Yeah,
Altogether.co.nz, we've created a pure gospel booklet titled Easter, What Do Christians Believe? $1 per piece. Engaging conversations requires basic conversational skills. If you go to the homepage, altogether.co.nz, there's a graphic there that says because we care.
mm-hmm.
And you click on that, you're in a series of 5-minute New Zealand made equipping videos on skills for engaging everyday conversations about spiritual things. Pastors can search the website by clicking pastors at the top. There's in
Yep.
fact sermon outlines, small group discussion guides, all sorts of things to help us to find our voice. And I would suggest that that's the core challenge. Hope Project's going to be doing social media, biggest spend we've ever done on social media. My goal is eventually to see Christian messages in front of half the population of New Zealand at Easter alone. Through Hope Project, we've got new media created, and we'll be building that into the future. And any person could also post something as well. So
Wow.
get creative. If we believe our message, we need to know our own story. And then we look to God for creativity to share it. People are spiritually interested. We've just got to find the way to connect, and God can help us with that.
Dave, thank you so much for the work that you and your team do. And hey, no excuses. It's all there, altogether.co.nz. I do hope that there's a positive Easter for you and your family. Thanks for the mahi that you do. Thanks so much for joining us once again.
Awesome. Cheers, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.